Hey, what's up, guys? This is Gaming Strategy TV on YouTube, and today I'm going to be doing the review of the movie Gravity. I have just come back from it, literally, and holy shit, was that a great movie? It was phenomenal. Um, it's so good that I told myself I gotta do the review immediately, otherwise I may forget everything I just saw. I mean, I'm still kind of coming out of that experience. It was scary. Not monster scary, not like fictional scary, it's like realism scary, you know what I mean? So before I proceed on this review, right? I'm just gonna say big spoilers are coming up. I'm gonna be telling everything as much as I can. And so, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I say do not listen to this review until you come back then. So, with that aside, let's get on with the review/overview. So basically, Gravity takes place in space, obviously from the trailers, but it focuses around two astronauts, primarily one of them played by Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, and then you had the third one who I didn't catch his name, but he was funny. I liked him. Anyway, so these three astronauts are sent up into space to kind of do some repairs on the Hubble telescope or install something, right? So, and in this little area, they're working on the Hubble telescope. They are, doing the repairs, and you get this great, I can't say great atmosphere because there is none. It's just, I like, it's hard to put this into words, but the way that the way George Clooney was playing his character. He was sarcastic. He seemed like a very seasoned astronaut. Well, obviously, Sandra Bullock was that new astronaut who was a doctor, who was assigned to do this mission to help out, kind of new on the block. And then you got the third astronaut with with the accent. I don't know what accent it is, so I'm not going to specify. Anyway, he was hilarious. I liked him. So this is where the spoilers are going to come in. So, they're doing the repairs, blah, blah, blah. You got George Clooney laughing, creating some laughs in the audience. And then all of a sudden, Houston comes up and goes, okay, guys, the Russians have detonated one of their satellites. Excuse me. Everything should be alright. And, they're like, okay, let's just finish up these repairs. The repairs on Sandra Bullock's side isn't doing too well. She's having trouble configuring whatever she's trying to repair. And all of a sudden, Houston calls in like, guys, abandon mission, abandon. And when Houston is telling you to abandon something, you abandon that shit and you haul ass. That was a scary moment. And Houston reports in that, guys, that debris field is now traveling towards you like a speeding bullet now. So you got these, and if you don't know yet, space junk is a huge problem for us even today. That may have been a movie, but space junk is actually a big problem. And even though this is a movie, it dawns on you that this shit is practical. It could happen, which makes it that all more exciting, tense, and thrilling and scary as hell. So they're trying to pack up and get done, and George Clooney is telling Sandra Bullock, hurry up, doctor, we gotta get out of here. And all of a sudden, you just see these little shining things just go whizzing by, and George Clooney's like, oh shit, we got debris inbound. So the debris comes in and starts wrecking up the whole ship, and Sandra Bullock's character gets flown out into space, just spinning on head on over heel through space, breathing, rapid, like, in that kind of exasperated way that means you're freaking panicking. And oh my god, that was the worst moment of watching that whole movie, because not because it was horrible to watch. It was horrible to watch because you were like, oh shit. Imagine me being there. I would do the same thing. And the worst part is that because you're in space, there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing to stop you. And I was telling myself, if that's the worst way to die. Absolutely. I guess worst way to die from lack of oxygen. I'm sure there are much, much worse ways to die, but this is the worst way to die in terms of running out of air, because you are just drifting out into space. And basically you're going into a void. And you're leaving home, Earth. And just to see it dwindle away is the worst feeling ever. To know that when you're dead, that you'll be lost forever. No one could ever see you again. And that's a horrible feeling. Anyway, so she's panicking. Eventually she collects herself, and George Clooney gets over, helps her out, right? So they make their way over back towards the shuttle, and along the way they try to pick up their friend who was knocked unconscious by some of the debris. And so they tether him on, and Sandra Bullock, was like, okay, let's check him out and see if it's alright. As they're, George Clooney has like a jetpack thingy that they're traveling, towards the shuttle. So they pick up their third team member and find that, Sandra Bullock finds that a piece of debris basically cleaved a hole through this guy's face. And it's like, oh shit. Holy crap. There's a hole in this guy's face. Not like a hole, but like someone took, like, imagine like a knife and just kind of slashed you through your skull. That's what it looked like. So they make their way over to the shuttle and find, they find like little stuff floating around it, and George Clooney's like, yep, this shuttle is completely screwed. And another thing that happened when this satellite, the Russian satellite, got detonated was that it started a chain reaction of taking out other satellites. They lost communication with Houston. They lost communication with anyone. So basically, this one event screwed everyone over, essentially. So they look into the space shuttle, right? And the way the camera was being moved around or the way the shots were being screened were phenomenal. And then you just see frozen corpses just come right in your face, and you're like, holy shit, that's fucking, they're dead people, but that was scary. It's like, oh shit, oh, okay, let's stop looking. So they're like, okay, not good. So George Clooney, he spots the ISS, International Space Station, and he's saying, listen, it's going to be a little hike to get over there, but that's our best chance. So as they're making our way over, George Clooney's just trying to help Sandra Bullock calm down, because she's running low on oxygen. I think halfway through, she's like on 5% oxygen. They're like a couple, I don't know how far away they were, but it was something like 10 minutes or 5 minutes left, and she had like eventually only 2% oxygen left. So she's calming down so she's not, breathing in as much oxygen as possible. So they're like a minute away of this thing, and she runs out of oxygen, and Clooney's like, oh, don't worry about it, you still got some oxygen in your suit, so just relax, don't gulp it down, just, take it easy. So, they're on their way to the space station, and George Clooney's like, listen, I only have a few, jetpack bursts left, and that's it. So they George Clooney reconfigures, and the way that Sandra Bullock is basically kind of a strap, she's tethered to the back of George Clooney's jetpack. So there's like a rope. You know what? There's like a rope, and she's attached to it with a clip. So every time he kind of clicks, the he goes forward, and then the rope pulls like really sharply on her, right? And a lot of times the camera would be shot from her perspective, so it was as if you were her, which is really fucking scary, because it's like it's claustrophobic, yet you're in a void, which makes no sense. Like, it's so open that's claustrophobic. Like, God, everything's just around me. I don't know what to do. Yet there's nothing around you. It makes no sense, but you can kind of imagine what you're like. You're in a suit surrounded by nothing. Anyway, so they're making their way over, and George Clooney is like, okay, I'm activating the thrusters right now. So he activates them and kind of reconfigures to line up, and they're heading at this thing like full speed ahead. And Sandra's like, oh, slow this thing down. He goes, I'm all out of fuel. So they whack into the ISS station. They're spinning, trying to grasp onto things. She grabs onto like a handlebar, but he collides into her, and just chaos ensues, and they're just spinning towards the Earth. And so the tether gets broken, and she's now just flying towards Earth now. And one of the things that, as they were approaching the ISS station, they were planning on going into an escape pod to get down to Earth. But one of the escape pods was already launched by the crew of the ISS, and then the other one was damaged beyond repair, or damaged that no way could they re-enter using it, but good enough to fly. And the parachute was opened already on it. So you had like a bunch of lines and tethers coming out of this thing. So her foot gets caught in one of these ropes, right? From the parachute. And George Clooney, he just passes by, and she tries to grab him and is able to grab his tether, but the momentum, she stops him, yet she can't hold on. Now this is the one argument I have with this whole movie, is that he's flying past her, right? And she grabs his tether. The moment he stops is the moment the momentum is canceled out. Therefore, there's no reason why he should be pulling on her anymore, unless for some reason gravity was affecting him. But then again, that would also be affecting Sandra Bullock, unless gravity has this specific range where, like, okay, 10 feet from George Clooney, no more gravity. But as soon as anything within George Clooney's range is being pulled in, which makes no. That's the only thing I had with this movie, is that that should have been addressed a little better, because the reason why I'm talking about this is because he, supposedly he's pulling at it, Sandra Bullock too hard on the tether, and her foot's starting to slip out of the ropes, and he would doom them both. So he makes an alternate sacrifice and unclips, right, and just says, "Listen, tell me you're going to survive. I know you went through a lot of painful things. One of which is you find out that Sandra Bullock had a child and a daughter, and she died. And I guess that is one of those complicated pasts. And, that person was kind of given up on life and is just living, in a shell. And George Clooney's like, tell me you're gonna make it. And she's like, I'm gonna come back for you. And he's like, no, that's not gonna happen. So as he's drifting off, he's like, get to the hatch, and even as he's floating away to his doom, he's like still helping her out, still giving her help, as much help as he can give her. And as she's floating, as he's floating, my bad, he's still trying to crack jokes, trying to help her, and trying to calm her down because she's out of oxygen right now. She's just breathing CO2, and pretty much, when eventually he drifts out of range, and that's it. He's gone. I was really upset when he died. I was like, oh my god, dear. I don't know. He was the captain of the mission. He was my favorite character, to be honest, and poof, gone just like that into the void. And that's horrible. Anyway, so she eventually gets on board the ship, and she's like, because she's out of oxygen, she's just trying to relax and trying to breathe easy. That one scene where George Clooney is floating off. If I'm mistaken, I'm sorry, but as she's floating off, she looks out and sees the aurora borealis, and it's the most beautiful thing. Even though this is all computer generated, graphics, because clearly they weren't going to shoot in space, it was beautiful. The whole thing was phenomenal. I would recommend it. This is the first time I would say, this is actually my first movie review. I would say watch this movie in 3D. Watch it in 3D. Because when the debris flies in your faces, I was blinking like, whoa, shit's flying in my eyes. Anyway, it was just phenomenal. It was just completely picturesque. Anyway, so she's on board, and as she's trying to, she gets onto she gets inside the station, she unsuits and gets to the comm station. So she's trying to communicate with Houston, and I think the captain's name was Matt. I believe it was Matt, and she gets nothing but static. And one of the things that this film director liked to do was, whenever he would follow the character or in the screen or any shot that he was doing, he would follow the character and kind of give you a glimpse of what was about to happen. Like, as she was going down through the ISS station, he's following her, right? Behind her. Kind of gives you that little glimpse of, like, fire just, like, floating in the air. See, that's another thing. Because this is supposed to be filmed in space, basically, a lot of the shit that happens is theoretical and has been proven. I mean, like, for instance, the dead corpses. We don't know what happens to a dead body in space. We don't know what happens to a person in space because no one's really sacrificed themselves to, or no one's really brought up a dead body into space before. So most of it's theoretical, some of the stuff, but a lot of stuff is proven, but actually never been physically seen. Maybe astronauts have actually seen fire before, have seen interact in space, and not space, but like anti-gravity situation on board a space station. But to the normal viewer, who are not astronauts, we don't know how it works in space. Anyway, so once she fails to get into communication with anyone, pretty much the whole station is now being set on fire because of this the sparks of fire from the damage of the ISS station. So she makes her way into one of the Russian escape pods on board the damaged one I was talking about before, and she launches the thing, and finds that, oh shit, I can't get out of this. The thing's launching, and she just can't get loose because the fucking parachute of this thing is still attached. So she's like, shit. So there's a backup suit in this escape pod. She puts it on, goes outside, starts, these the parachute's ropes are bolted into the escape pod. So she starts, like a something to unscrew the bolts, and starts taking them out. Now on the last one, the debris in this movie kind of reminded me of Jaws. The debris is this killing machine that is just following your ass. Every hour and a half it pops up. That's what it was. Supposedly in the movie, this thing was traveling so fast it would go around the whole Earth in an hour and a half. So this thing's coming back and starts shredding up the whole place, and she, drills out the last one. She gets back on board, and she's flying off towards, gets away from the debris, and after the ISS station completely blows up, takes off one of her solar panel wings. She's now heading towards the Chinese space station, her last hope. As she's heading towards it, right, she does a couple adjustments and finds that, okay, on her final adjustment to line up, she goes and engage her main thrusters to get there, and finds that there's no more goddamn fuel. And she's like, oh shit, god damn it, and she's just flipping out. And then she gives up hope, and she turns on the radio, her last moment, and she's like, is there anyone out there? And all of a sudden this person comes on. I wasn't sure if it was Chinese being spoken or some other language, but I couldn't understand it either way. But I felt like it was something symbolic was going on in that little phrase. When she was talking, she starts howling like a dog, she starts crying, and you see her teardrops start floating into space. I don't know if you can actually cry in space because of, I have no idea. Like I said, a lot of the shit is theoretical. So she finally gets on board the no, actually she doesn't get on board yet. She gives up hope, turns off the radio, and just turns off the oxygen, and the oxygen levels starting to decrease. And what she plans on doing basically is starving herself of oxygen and to go out peacefully, just go unconscious and die. And all of a sudden, a knock happens on the port of the shuttle, right? Of the escape pod, and you hear like ding ding ding, and she looks into like a viewports with a glass, and she sees Matt, George Clooney's back. It's like, oh my god, and he's like, yeah, let me in. She's like, no. He opens up the the hatch and gets in and closes it, and I was like, wait, shouldn't she be dead? But she's still alive, and he's like, I beat whoever's name's record for the longest moonwalk or spacewalk ever. I'm gonna have to call him up and bust him and tell him the bad news. And she goes, how are you still alive? And I'm going, how are you still alive? And I was trying to figure out, like, maybe there was still air pressure inside, and as it was being vacuumed out, he would close it quick enough. But anyway, so he tells, like, oh, it was a long story. Isn't this place a little gloomy in here? Look, come on. And he starts turning everything back on. It's like, so did you know where the vodka is? And she's like, I didn't have enough time to find it. And he pulls out like a vodka from underneath the scene. He goes, see, told you I was running on fumes. And he's just like chugging the vodka and goes, so let's get this thing on track. And she goes, listen, I tried everything. There's no more fuel in it. And he goes, there's always a way. And she goes, he goes, what about the soft thrusters, right before, the thing that goes right before landing? And she goes, yeah, but that's just for landing. And he goes, listen, did anyone tell you landing and flying was the same thing? Or something along the lines. And he goes, listen, you just gotta, believe in yourself. And she goes, how did you survive? And he goes, it's a long story. And the camera pans over to her, and she kind of like looks back, and he's gone. It was all a hallucination. I was like, oh, motherfuckers. Oh, I like that character so much, and you're just playing with us, man. Anyway, so she's like, so that hallucinogenic moment was basically like a blessing, and basically it was almost as if like an angel came down and was like, hey, buddy, his angel was like, hey, I sacrificed my life so you can live. That kind of just sounded like an Optimus Prime thing. Anyway, so she does what her hallucination of Matt told her to do, and she heads off towards the Chinese station. She gets aboard the Chinese space station. And this thing, and she's traveling towards it, and she sees that the Chinese space station is now falling into orbit, and something was going to break up, right? So she also brought a fire extinguisher aboard her escape pod because the previous ISS station was on fire, and in space, remember this. Remember one of Newton's laws. I believe it's the third one. For every force, there's an equal and opposite force. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that when you give something a push, it gives you a push back, and therefore, she uses the fire extinguisher as she leaps out. Remember, there's still a spacesuit in the escape pod, so she leaps out of this escape thingy, and she activates the fire extinguisher to propel herself towards the space station, and she eventually gets on board, and she's climbing, scrambling up. I always hate when she opens up the freaking ports because the ports on the stations, because when you're opening up, there's air pressure in there and there's a void on the outside. So when she opens up the port, right, the door just flings open violently, like shipping, and she's holding onto this thing like whoa. She's holding on by one hand, and this thing just gets launched open, right? So she pulls herself in close to the hatch and gets aboard this finally gets her way onto the escape pod, and at the same time the satellite's breaking up and like shaking like violently like as it's flying into the atmosphere, and the whole thing's burning up, breaking apart, and just pushing buttons like eeny meeny miny, kind of like she goes meeny miny, and she's pushing wrong buttons, unclicking them, and then she finally finds the right button. It's a countdown because she doesn't know how to activate the manual release of the escape pod, so she waits like that 1 minute. So this thing is burning up and is getting slightly damaged at the same time. And so as they're re-entering, the thing finally breaks open, and she's like, she's reciting things that George Clooney was telling her, like, listen, you just gotta enjoy the ride. This is a once in a life opportunity. You live life in the moment. Don't live in the past. So she's kind of taking these things to heart, and she's like kind of having that nervous laughter hysteria kind of thing at the same time, and you feel like you're with her the whole journey, because sometimes the view would be from first person perspective, or it's really close up, and you're just experiencing all the turning and twisting at the same time she is. It's just horrible. And this thing finally breaks off of the space station, and it gets dented up, and the whole thing is just shaking violently, and re-enters the atmosphere, and the parachute opens up, and she lands in the ocean, right? And she opens up the hatch, and because there's a fire now inside her escape pod, because it got pretty damaged upon landing, and the water's, and she wants to open up the hatch to get out. So she opens up, and water just starts pouring in, and the thing starts sinking, right? I was like, oh shit. No, she survived through all this shit, and she's gonna die from drowning. This is depressing. So as this thing hits, it was where this thing landed was pretty near the shore, so when it sunk, it was only like 20 feet down or something like that. But she had to swim out, and she was trying to swim, right? But her spacesuit was pulling her down, so she had to undo the whole spacesuit. And I guess these spacesuits were created to be taken off easily, because they're like in segments. They're like almost segmented parts. So she takes it off quickly and gets to the surface, right? And she makes herself over to the beach, and just thanks God that she'd survived. So pretty much that was the whole movie. And I would to say that I enjoyed this movie every moment of the way. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend watching it in 3D. So thanks for watching, guys. My final verdict is that the movie visuals were superb, absolutely superb. The story was phenomenal, and I love this movie. I would give it a 10 out of 10. It was that great. And it was just that great. It really was. You seeing the Earth from space, always I always love those moments. I always love it. And they capture everything perfectly. Even though there may be some flaws because of theoretical things like, I don't know what happens in space when this occurs, whatnot, or the space debris being that violent and whatnot. It was fantastic. You felt like you were the character the whole way through. You were experiencing the stress, the anxiety, the sadness of seeing your comrades being propelled into space because you can't save them. So, I would say watch this movie. It is a must watch. And I apologize if you watch this movie and leave going, I will never fucking go into space ever fucking again. I will never even attempt to go into space because it's that scary. That's how I felt when I watched this movie. It's not because I'm scared of a little monster creature. It's because of the reality that this shit could happen. So, anyway, I thank you guys for watching. Please check out my video. And my Legend of Korra Season 2 Episode 5, I believe, will be coming out soon. The review of that will be coming soon. I'm sorry that I never got around to it yet. But that's because I did this review first. And thank you so much for watching, guys. See you later.